Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you this morning? Yes, I am not Helen Jones Lamar Hall Taylor, but I am one of her 6 children. So today is dedicated to my mother, Nana, to her grandchildren, great grandchildren, and great great grandchildren. As you can see, this is not Helen Jones Lamar Hall Taylor, but we are celebrating her birthday today. So I am going to dedicate just a few minutes to talk about my mother on her birthday, where she was born on March the 23rd of 1935. But before we do that, we must give our Creator, who I choose to call God, as she would say, glory, glory, glory. That was her favorite word. Glory. Glory! Glory! Yes. And so we want to thank our higher power, who we call God, for giving us life, for giving me life this morning, this day, breathing life into this vessel to give homage, acknowledgement, blessings, right? Huh? Yes, praise to my mother, Helen Jones Lamar Hall Taylor. If it wasn't for God on her side, if it wasn't for God on my side, I would not be here sitting before you this moment. If it was not for my mama's prayers, I would not be alive today. My mama prayed for me. She had me on her mind, and I'm so glad my mama prayed for me. So we don't take any of the credit. We give all the glory to God and God all by himself. So just let me take 30 seconds and a moment of silence to thank my God for my mother, to thank God on behalf of my mother. Woo, glory. Just to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Join me for 30 seconds in a moment of silence in honor of my God, our God, the God of us all, and to my mother, Helen Jones Lamar Hall Taylor. Join me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You see this clan in back of me? You see her 6 children, and her husband, the father of her 6 children, huh? You see the grandchildren of her down here with me, her great grandchildren up here. Yes. And we are family. It's about maybe 19, 20 of us right here. In honor of my mother's birthday, March the 23rd, I want to dedicate this time solely to her life, her entire life, for not just her children, but for God's children. Any child was her child. Every child was her child. And in honor of my mother's birthday today, I just want to share a little bit about her to you. I'm going to start off by taking myself off the screen and putting her on the screen and telling you about this story. Can't do that unless I'm on the screen too. So I'm going to give Mama the front row, yes. And I'm going to share a little bit about my mother with you. So let's start from this picture. Do you see the picture that's above our picture? You see the woman bowing down her head, praying. But you see on my mother's chest is my book that I wrote over 31 years ago, the first 4 years of my recovery. And it says, From Crack to Christ. My mother had me on her mind. My mother prayed for me. And the book is entitled As It Was Written. Yes, because I had a praying mother who not only prayed for me, she prayed for all her 6 children. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that picture. But right now, I just want to share a little bit about my mama. Okay. So I want to first acknowledge that my mother was born in Augusta, Georgia, March the 23rd of 1935. Augusta, Georgia, where James Brown was born too, Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Woo! She would always acknowledge I come from the Godfather of soul. City and state, Augusta, Georgia. Yes, my mother, Helen Jones Lamar Hard Taylor, from Augusta, Georgia, was the daughter of Beatrice. I'm gonna mess up some names, but y'all have to charge it to my mind and not my heart. But her mother was named Beatrice, right? And from what I understand, my mother had a sister and a brother, Bobby. I don't remember her sister's name, but my mother got to visit her before she transitioned to God. As children, my mother played with this little boy next door, right? Because Beatrice, right, who was a woman of the world, what can I say? Listen, she ain't had time for no children, right? And so guess who filled in for those children, including my mother? The grandmother, the mother of my mother. And so my mother was raised temporarily by her grandmother. But next door to my mother's biological grandmother was a childless couple, the Lamars. Yes, Ruby and Thomas Lamar. Yes. a childless couple. And so, wouldn't you have it, they are next door neighbors, and Ruby and Thomas Lamar sees that, wow, she has 3 grandchildren and we don't have any children, right? So as God would have it, my mother was chosen out of the 3 to be the daughter of Ruby and Thomas Lamar. So she was raised by Ruby and Thomas Lamar right next door to her own biological grandmother. However, Bobby, my mother's brother, often played in the yard, and my mother, Helen, played in her new yard. And they were playing back and forth, never knowing that they were brothers and sisters. Ruby and Thomas Lamar were a family with high standards, known in their community as, the Lamars, right? Uppity, maybe some people would say. Particular, some people would say, right? Some people would say they think they are better than. Some people would say. But they chose my mother to raise. And guess what? To the best of their ability is what I'm going to say. To the best of their ability. Thank God for a 12-step program. To the best of their ability, based on what they knew, what they felt, what they believed, and what they wanted you to believe, they did the best they could. As a result of being raised by the Lamars, my mom was spoiled. She was given any and everything that she could possibly want. She wore the best clothes, was taken to church, right? Was shown in the community as the Lamar's daughter. Yes, Now, I am going to kind of fill in the blanks because we as human beings, particularly from the old school, old population, we lie. We cover up, right? We don't tell the whole truth. So listen, you got the right one being transparent this morning. But in spite of, they gave her everything she could possibly want. Until such time when she went to school and her, unknownly to her brother, went to the same school, right? Yes, somebody, like they always do, wind up telling one of the secrets. Yes, you know who you playing with? You know that's your brother? That's not my brother. He's my next door neighbor. She runs home to her mama, Ruby. Mommy. The kids say that boy right there, that's my brother. And like old folks do, who told you that? Don't mind what them people say. Right? And don't you know, shortly thereafter, she was shipped to Philadelphia. Isn't that what they do back in the day? They either ship you down south or ship you up north when there is some secrets. When there is some reputation at stake. When something is about to be revealed or disclosed that makes one uncomfortable, that will challenge and have people think differently of them. Yes, she was shipped to Philadelphia. Only God. Well, when she got to Philadelphia, right? Well, who was in Philadelphia but Ruby Lamar's mother? We call her Grandmom Carrie, right? Carrie Jones. That's where the Jones came from. So Helen Jones Lamar, or Helen Lamar Jones. I guess Lamar came first and then the Jones came next. But let me tell you how she got the Jones, huh? Listen. My mom always said I talk too much, but guess what? I'm telling the truth from what I know, just to share with you how God will work it out no matter what. He has every soul, every spirit, destined to do what he destined that soul spirit to do and accomplish. So, okay, Carrie Jones, another family that's well-to-do, has her own business, right? Back in the 1930s, having your own store. Oh my! Oh, the Jones, yes, She had a deli and she had her apartment in the back, and in the community, the Jones family. So my mother left a well-to-do family, wow, to come to Philadelphia and be, shared with Grandmom Carrie, right? Now, in order, and my mom was a young adolescent. I would say maybe, I don't know, 12, 13, something like that, right? So in order for her to go to school in Philadelphia, you had to have the same name. What? So Grandma Carrie could not register her as Helen Lamar. So the well-to-dos and people who know what to do, when to do it, to make things happen, alter documents, create documents, and voila! There was a birth certificate that says Helen Jones. That's okay. Hey, gotta do what you gotta do, right? So she became Helen Jones and started going to the public school here in Philadelphia. All right. So with Grandmom Carrie, having her in school and she living with Grandmom Carrie, right? That, I love telling my mother's story because listen, I'm telling the truth, right? With all due respect, right? And so the benefit of a 12-step program is that you get to relish in a person's journey, a person's process, and I'm relishing it in my mama's. That's why I am jubilant, I'm happy, I'm smiling, I feel great because I'm paying homage to my mother. Yes. So, okay, let me get back to the story, okay? All right. So, she goes to school, and Grandma Carrie often went to church. Okay. So at Bright Hope Baptist Church, right, down there in North Philly, or right off of Columbia Avenue, around about the age, I guess, 14, 15, maybe 14, she started going to church. Now, again, back down in Georgia, you know how many of us on Sundays, we get up and we get dressed and we put on our little hats and we put on our little clothes and we go to church with our little gloves and our gloves, a little pocketbook, little hat, right? So the same thing happened when my mother came to Philadelphia. She was a part of a church-going family on Sundays. You heard that saying, go to church on Sunday and act the fool Monday through Saturday. Well, guess what? These families were no different, according to the history, right? So, while going to church, she met this boy. Yeah, or he met her, or they crossed paths at Bright Hope Baptist Church. Yes, Woo! You know what happens when you see somebody and somebody paying you attention. And yes, my dad was very handsome. My dad was very, he had from what I understand, a good physique. Okay, let me say, right? And so my mother, from what I was told and looking at some of her pretties, ooh, she was a olive glass, right? With a big wood, right? Little, oh yeah. They used to call us the butt sisters, right? But anyway, so now we know where we got it from. So they met, right? So after a few encounters, after a few, flirtation, winking, concentrating on church, but looking at the boy, you know how we do, right? So my dad was being taken to church by the Hall family. Now, it's ironic how when you go into one's history, right? So let me step off for a second and share the similarities of my parents, okay? Which they thought, wow, we were meant to be together. Yes, look at our history. Look at how we both was raised, right? And even though I will focus on my dad when his birthday comes, but I want to interject the similarities of their upbringing that possibly could have contributed to their union, okay? So now, even though this says, day 108, but I'm talking about my mother, right? So let me put that back. No, I'm not going to put that back up. So my dad, born to Elizabeth Kemp. His father was named Phillips, right? And so my grandmother Kemp had 3 children, Aunt Elsie, Aunt Margaret, 4 children, my dad, Edward, and my youngest uncle, Bernard. Okay. Now, my grandmother, again, was single and she was struggling, and she had already had 2 girls when my father came along. And guess what? In a room that she had rented from the Halls, the Halls were childless. Yes, see? They were childless. So when Grandma Kemp got pregnant with my dad, and it was a boy, Mr. Hall wanted a boy, and somehow, way, shape, form, or fashion, my dad was given to the Halls on the request of Mr. Hall, but some apprehension from Mrs. Hall, because she might have thought it was his. I don't know. And so it goes back to show about the dynamics of things that go on and people's perception and perspective. So let me get back to the story. So therefore, my dad also was given away to a childless couple, the Halls. So now, they lived in Philly, and that's where they were going to church, the Halls, another well-to-do family, right? Spoiled my dad, gave him everything, dressed him to the T. Mr. Hall, my dad was his pride and joy, took him everywhere, showed him how to be a man and other things too. Right? So anyway, my mother and father had similar upbringing, right? They were both given away. And my father was 2 years older than my mother. Okay, so when my mother was, 14, and my dad was 16, right? They met in church one day. And like anything else, they snuck downstairs. Yes, they snuck downstairs to, I'm going to say the one of the bathrooms, either the man or the woman, probably the men's bathroom. I don't know. But guess what? From what I understand, a lot of things go on in the church that we don't know about. But 9 months later, you'll find out. Oh, Lord, I love telling my mama's story because my oldest sister, Ruby Almira Hall, was conceived on a bathroom floor in the basement of Bright Hope Baptist Church. Yes. Okay. All right. So now it takes a while for, all that to show and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So now when they were courting, if you will, my dad would go visit my mom, but after, Grandma Carrie was like, get away, boy, get away, boy, get away, boy. You know how y'all used to do back in the day, keep the boys from the girls and the girls from the boys. But guess what? If there's a will, there's a way. So my dad will go around the back. My mom would open up the window. My dad would climb up the little fire escape, and voila, he's in her bedroom. Yes, if there's a will, there's a way. And guess what, y'all? For y'all newsy neighbors, the newsy neighbors will go and tell Grandma Carrie, you better watch that little boy. That little boy going up in your daughter's room. Oh, Grandma Carrie, oh, no, that's not even possible. Them neighbors say, listen, we watch him every night. Oh, God. Oh. And how many of us have done that or still doing that and will continue to do that? But let me get back to the story. All right. So my mother and my father were expecting, and at the age of 15, my mother was pregnant, going to be 15, and my dad either going to be 16 or 16. And so you know how back in the day, back down in the South, but I guess they do it up north too, right? When the Jones talked to the Lamars, when the mother and the grandmother got together about my mother, oh, they said, no, we can't have this. We are stand-up people. We can't have our reputation. Oh no, the girl's pregnant, and guess what? That boy gotta marry her. Now, I'm not gonna say they actually took a shotgun, but Grandma Carrie and my Ruby Lamar, right, and my mother went to the halls, and they looked at my dad, and they looked at the halls, and my mom and dad looking at each other, scared as I don't know what, right? Woo! So the adults, right? What we gonna do? Grandma Carrie said, I know what we gonna do. They gonna get married. Whoa, okay. Yes, you can call it a shotgun wedding if you want. I don't care what you call it, but they getting married. Why? Because we have to uphold our reputation. We can't see, you know how that stuff goes, right? So no problem. My mother, my dad, they was listen, they were happy, right? So they wanted to know, well, how this boy who is 16 or soon to be, how he going to take care of this baby? How is he going to take care of his wife? Well, Mr. Hall says, well, he has two choices. He can get a job or he can go into the army. Yes, but he was only 16. Guess what? He lied. They convinced him to lie to go into the army. Yes. So while my mom, this one over here, was pregnant with my sister Ruby, and dad went into the service, Guess what? Guess what Ruby Lamar did? The Lamars and the Jones did. Well, we have to buy a wedding gown, and we have to take a wedding picture to show that they were married legally before she starts showing. Yes, we have to, you know. So my grandmom, Granny, I'll call her, and Grandmom Carrie and my mom went to the whatever, and they either rented or bought it, I don't know, but they took pictures as if my mother was actually in her wedding gown, and she had a bouquet covering her stomach. And she was sitting there all pregnant, right? But to the public, no. So guess what? Ruby Lamar, so proud that her daughter is having, no, her daughter got married first. Lie. Oh, and she's having a baby. Didn't disclose that though, right? Went back down to Augusta, Georgia, and just showed all her people. Look at Helen. Look at my baby. Yeah, she's married, y'all. She's married, y'all. Took the picture, but didn't take her. She stayed up here in Philly, but her image, right? Her image was taken to Augusta, Georgia, so that all the well-to-do people can see the Lamar's daughter got married. Yes. All right. So Dad went into the Army. And Mommy stayed with Grandmom Carrie in her storefront in the back. And Mr. Hall still took care of, my dad's affair while he was in the Army. Now, could you imagine a 16-year-old who lied to get in the Army? Right? Acting like he was entitled, acting like he was the man, to the point where he impersonated an MP. Military police, if you don't know what that means. Yes. Oh, he had these little cadets doing this and doing that, shining his shoes, and probably some other things too. I don't know, right? Yes, but it came back from being entitled. I'm Mr. Hall's son. I got pride. I got standards. You cater to me. And guess what? While Mommy was at home, right, in Philadelphia, Ruby was born. And so, guess what? They took them, Mommy and Ruby went down to Georgia. So Ruby Lamar and Lamar can show off their granddaughter, right? Mommy and her little, she still had an hourglass shape, right? She was all that in a can of paint on that big butt, right? And so, yeah, so again, so to substantiate, right? Yeah, they got married, but now they have a baby, and here she is. Isn't she pretty? And they named her after Ruby Lamar. So Ruby is Ruby Almira Hall. Right? So we really don't know what her name should be. Hall, the Phillips, the Kemps, what? Jones, Lamar. Oh, Lord. But that's okay. We are Halls as far as we knew until years later. Okay, so now, once my dad would come and come on leave, right? He would send his little check, and so he can support his family. And the Halls contributed as well, because the Jones and the Lamars make sure that boy contributed. If he didn't contribute, his parents was, right? And at the same time, Mrs. Hall, oh my God, from what I heard about her, she was mean to my dad. She was angry. Look, she didn't like him. She was jealous of him, right? And she had that suspicion Y'all know what happened back in the day when you want to rent a room from somebody and you destitute and whatnot, and the person who want to rent you the room wants some favors. So, who knows, right? Only God knows the truth. But I'm surmising, but guess what? Mrs. Hall had her suspicions, and rightfully so. So anyway, so that's when my dad got the idea about how to treat women based on how he was treated by Mrs. Hall and how Mr. Hall treated her. Because Mr. Hall not only showed my father how to be a man, but he also showed him how to be disrespectful, be unfaithful. Yes. So that's what I mean by when you are raised, you get the good and the bad, depending upon who's raising you. You get their attitudes, ideas, and beliefs, and they're going to show you how to be a man or show you how to be a woman or a lady, right? So either way, listen. All right, so now my mother and Ruby are in Georgia. My dad is coming back and forth on leave, okay? While he's there, he's getting in trouble, right? And so, he was able to stay a few years, I would imagine. And then during that time, my sister Deborah was born, right? God bless her heart. And that was 2 years later after Ruby, right? So now at the age of my mother being 17, my dad being 19, they got 2 kids. Okay. All right. So Deborah's born, right? Dad's still coming in and out, whatever. And the Lamars and the Jones are still fronting. So they come back to Philly. And then Dad begins to take leave of absence here. Not leave of absence, but, I think he went AWOL a couple of times too. But, he would get in trouble all the time in the Army, impersonating an MP, right? So, but listen to this. So my mom and dad had 2, Ruby Amira Hall and Deborah Jean Hall, okay? And so now it was 3 years later, was Deborah? Oh, all right. Well, anyway, 3 years later, my dad come home, right? And he plants a seed. He plants a seed, right? And so from what I understand, my dad was around me out of all the children the most, right? So when my mom was carrying me, right, her and my dad, they went through their little issues, right? And you know what they say when a woman despise a man, or she don't like him, or she hates him, this and that, the child usually come out looking just like him, right? So because my dad was still thinking he was entitled, my dad still think he was God's gift to women, okay? And so my mom was a young teenager and he was a young teenager, but here he had untraveled and had some experience and felt entitled. But I was the only one, from what I was told, that he was around my mother while she was pregnant and after I was born. And like I said, she didn't like them. She hated them. She despised them. And when I came out, I looked just like them, right? And so, and so much so, even though my dad wanted a boy, but he saw me and he said, wow, she looks just like me. Oh, we need to call her Edwina. My mom said, what? Edwina? Huh? Well, she needs to be named after me, Edwina Clinton Hall. You talking about ego? You talking about somebody who is prideful? What? He's going to name a girl Edwina Clinton Hall because his name is Edward Clinton Hall. My mom said, oh, hell to the no. Edward, they ain't gonna work. I'll give you Clinton, but Edward, no. So I don't know how, what, when, or where. There was a lady in the neighborhood named Edwina. And so they decided to call me. My mom decided to call me Edwina. So I am born, and have the name Edwina Clinton Hall, named as close after my dad as possible, look just like him. Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting because the same situation that happened with my mother and playing with her brother, it happened with my dad and playing with his sister, Margaret Kemp, right? And so when they were growing up, Margaret was first and then my dad, but they looked just alike. But they wasn't together, but they played together. They went to the same school together, and it came out. Secrets always come out that they were brothers and sisters. So you see the similarities and their relationship and how you would think they were destined to be together. Okay, maybe for a purpose, right? But anyway, so my dad was around with me, and he was so proud to have somebody look exactly like him. When I say exactly like him, exactly like him. And he paraded me around and he showed me off this, and that, yes. And by his sister, Margaret, looking just like him, they could pass for twins. I looked like her, right? All right, so this is about my mom's story. Okay, so anyway, all right. So my dad was around, was proud. Now, 17 and 19. 3 kids. Okay. My dad went back to the service. Okay. So he would come on leave, right? And after he would come on leave, right? So after mom had me, right? Obviously she didn't wait 6 weeks because my sister Carolyn was born 10 months to the day. She was born October the 16th of 1956. So every time my dad came home from leave, he left something in the oven, right? All righty. So now they have 4 children. My dad still one of the boy, right? He go back into the army and doing what he doing, right? He didn't wait 6 weeks either, because 10 months later and a day earlier, my oldest brother was born, Edward Clinton Hall Jr. He was born on August the 15th of 1957. All righty then. So, okay, by this time, daddy's out the army and whatnot, and they going through their little issues and everything, right? They must have waited a little bit longer, or something interrupted the process, because a year later, my baby brother was born on August the 30th of 1958. So by the time my mother was 22 and my dad was 24, they had 6 children. Would have had more. Mom said, I ain't. But 6 children. My mother would often say, and listening to her and asking her to share her story with me, she was a mother who looked at her children as if they were doll babies. Doll babies. Why? Because as a little girl, that's all Ruby Lamar gave her was doll babies, doll babies, doll babies, doll babies, right? And my mother said she gave me everything that she could possibly want, but she didn't give me her. My mom said Ruby Lamar was not affectionate. Don't even remember her ever telling her she loved her. Was always angry, upset, right? Protective. Why? Because she was keeping a secret. But took it out on my mother. But they did the best that they thought they could do by giving her everything they wanted, everything she wanted, and all of it was mostly doll babies. So when my mother had these 6 children, guess what she pretended they were? Doll babies, but alive. She said that's how she got through those rough years. She said that's how she got through her husband being a womanizer. That's how she got through the stress and the anger and being upset, right? And not getting help from my dad. And just by looking at her 6 children as doll babies. So my mother dedicated all her life to her 6 children. She endured all kinds of abuse. She endured all kinds of neglect. And there was this doctor, I'm sure she would say his name, Dr. Braslow, on Lehigh, 29th and Lehigh. She contributes him to saving her life from my dad and the grip that he had on her. Yes. He would tell my mother, Helen, if you worried about your children, their safety, your safety, you got to take care of yourself and you got to let go of Eddie Hall. My mother couldn't, you know how we women are. He said, Helen, if you don't do that, you're not going to be around for your children. And so my mother, through the help of God, she found the God of her own understanding. She developed her own personal relationship with the God of her understanding. She would always say when she was having these children back to back to back, Lord, my babies are not going to be babies forever. They're not going to be babies forever. She reached out to her God. She developed that relationship with her God while she was raising her children. She had no one really to depend on, even though Grandma Carrie was there, Ruby Lamar was there. They weren't the safe havens when Mom and Dad got into it when he was abusive and whatnot. But it was God and her relationship with the God of her understanding that got her through. So she said, once that doctor told her about her children and her need for her survival to get rid of Eddie Hall, my dad, she had a prayer that worked. Guess what that prayer was, y'all? She would pray to God, Lord, if you take him off my heart, if you take him out of my heart, I can get him off my mind. Lord, if you get him out my heart, I can get him off my mind. That was her daily prayer. And guess what? God answered her prayer. Yes. During some turbulent times, during some rough times, she believed in keeping all her children together. She was not going to give away any of her children. And she would always say, I don't care. We have to live in one room and one box, eat one bread. We are going to stay together. She was adamant about keeping her children together. Why? Because of her past. And the past of my father, she was not going to give away her children. Hell to the no. And she developed that relationship with God that has been unshakable and still is unshakable even while she's up there. I don't know what they're doing, right? huh? But she prayed, if you get them out of my heart, I can get them off my mind. So that was one challenge my mother went through. But there was another challenge. Challenge is, four out of her 6 children wound up getting hooked on drugs. My mother didn't know about drugs and all that kind of stuff. She tried to protect us, gang warrant on 22nd and Lehigh, 21st and Norris and all that kind of stuff, right? 2-4 Valley. She protected her children. She made sure that we got recreation. She made sure that we stayed in school. She made sure that she provided, right, what we needed. And oftentimes at home, listen, we didn't really need friends because we played with each other, right? But she always had her children at her core and praying and protecting them, right? And so what happens when you try to consume, or when you try to overprotect, when you try to be strict, just like she did, listen, we did too. And so 4 out of her 6 children became addicted to drugs. And guess who was the worst? Me. Yes, the one who looked just like her husband. The one that, And my mom and we had I'm going to say, a strange relationship. I loved my mom. I loved my mom, but I didn't like her. No, I didn't. I'm going to tell you, listen, I'm transparent. I did not like my mother. Why? Because her and my siblings tried to get all the attention of my daddy. That was my daddy. My daddy. I don't care if that's your husband, your father. That's my daddy. And so I did not like my mother or my siblings because I was jealous of the attention and affection. So throughout the years, I did not have that maternal connection with my own mother. But guess who I had it with? Another childless person, Margaret Williams. My dad's sister, who I looked just like. Yes, I felt closer to her than my own mother. And who would have thought years later, we addressed that on my TV show. Yes, we did. So let me get back to that. All right. So as a result of us being on drugs and everything, I'm being the first one. Let me kind of, I got but a few more minutes. Let me say that it is a mother's prayer. A mother's prayer. A mother's prayer. My mama prayed for me. She prayed for all her children. She had us on her mind. Where you at, Mom? My mama prayed for us, right? And so when all of them, the other 3, they were, I happen to be the worst, right? She said she would go to church all the time, and she said I would throw Edwina to the altar. God, take her. God, take her. God, take her, Just take her, Lord. Take her. Take her, Lord, right? I knew where my mom was every Sunday, every Wednesday, After she met author Bernard Taylor Jr., and when I was in high school, she met this man, honey. He was a gospel singer. You know what they say about them gospel singers, right? They singing about Jesus, but anyway, that's another story. But they were together 41 years. He made my mother happy. Yes, Arthur Bernard Taylor Jr. gave my mom the best years of her life. However, he went through with her having her children addicted to drugs, me being the worst, and she would always throw me to the altar. Take it, Weena, take it, Weena. She would lay me down, and I would say, Voodoo, get the drugs out. She would call us up praying over me. I'm like, well, you hurry up, woman, whatever. She would have these family meetings and Weena. Yeah, my sister Deborah, who was on drugs, right? She would say, y'all better leave it Weena alone, honey. All she doing is waiting to get high, and it was right. But who would have known, who would have thought that God was in the mix the entire time? That he had plans for all Helen Hall Taylor's children, including me. I'm the prodigal child. I'm the one who didn't have a relationship with my mother, but I would give her anything she wanted. But guess what? She wanted my love and my affection, but I couldn't give it. I didn't know how to give it to my own mother until God decided the time would come that I would. So, as a result, and maybe I'll finish tomorrow, I don't know. Or maybe I'll continue it later, I don't know. But years later, I got into recovery. Out of all my siblings, I'm the only one in recovery who stayed in recovery. Although my sister Deborah, she died sober, but she had some issues. But I celebrated 31 years in recovery. But before then, right, my mom, took on the relationship of still taking care of kids, grandkids, great-grandkids. All her life was about kids. But guess what? She was addressing something when she got with Daddy T and started traveling. So that's where I got my dressing from my mother, right? She sacrificed all those years. And honey, when she met Daddy T, listen, we would take her to the store. I want that. Honey, they used to be so jealous of the Taylors, right? That was my mama, right? But God had other plans. Not everything lasts forever. And one day, my mom fell sick and she had a stroke. And I'm just going to kind of just sum it up, right? Out of all my mom's 6 children, the prodigal child, I had already taken care of several family members on hospice as a result of being in recovery. I already had in my house my sister and my aunt and my late husband, right? But when mom fell sick, right? Everybody said that you got other siblings, this and that. Okay, all right. Well, I'm waiting for, but listen, it wasn't 24 hours. I called my mom. I said, Mom, come on. This was her finger. Mom, come on. Mom, bring your ass here. Come on, Mom. Come on. I'll make room for you. I got room in the house for you, Mother. I'll make room for you, Mother. I will make room for you, Mother. Come, Mother. Come. And she came. And God allowed me to take care of my mother, along with 2 other family members on hospice, all at the same time. Yes, my mother prayed for me. She had me on her mind. I'm so glad my mother prayed for me. Yes, God saw fit to prepare me to take care of her. Yes, me out of all the 6 children, he prepared me. And I did it. Yes. Come on, Ma. Her finger. Come on. I ain't waiting on nobody to take care of my mother. Nobody. Because my mother prayed for me. She had me on her mind. I'm so glad my mother prayed for me. And on May the 6th of 2016, God called her home. But before he did, I had made plans to take my mother to Florida with me. I took my mother everywhere I went, every business trip, every vacation. There wasn't nothing I wouldn't do for my mother. And I'm going to tell you, when I made those reservations, I didn't know God had other plans. And it was revealed, Edwina, you go to Florida and you talk to those 300 and something preachers and you share what I did for you. I got your mother. Don't worry about her. I got her. I got your mother. And before I left to go to Florida, knowing that my mother would not be here when I came back, I knew it. God already showed me, told me. But I bent down on her bed and I sung this song that she sung, She had them sing every time she went to church, She would ask them to play this song called My Child. And I bent down and I said these words to my mother. She was not all there, but the last thing that goes in anyone's life is their hearing. And I said these words to my mother. I was talking to a lady a few days ago, and these are the words she said. If you see my child somewhere as you journey here and there, tell them I'm waiting for my child to come home. I am waiting and waiting for my child to come. I'm waiting and waiting for my child to come. If you can't come home, would you please send me a letter? A letter would mean so much to me. Lord, my child may be somewhere in some lonely jail. Lord, there's no one there to post his bail. Lord, my child may be somewhere on his sick bed. Lord, there's no one there to rub his aching head. But listen, if I only knew what town my child was in, I'll be there on that early morning train. And no matter what the crime, Lord, you know that child is mine. And I'm waiting for my child to come home. I'm home, Mama. I'm home, Mama. Mama, I'm home, Mama. Be blessed. Be blessed. Be blessed.